Do you know the story of how an entire U.S. territory decided that black people were not allowed to exist there at all? Follow if you've never heard this story, because this isn't ancient history. This is American history. In 1844, long before Oregon became a state, lawmakers in what is now Oregon passed one of the most extreme racial exclusion laws in the country. It was called a Black Exclusion Law. Black people, whether enslaved or free, were banned from living in Oregon. Let that sink in. Not restricted, not segregated, banned. At the time, Oregon was still a territory, attracting white settlers with promises of free land through westward expansion. But those settlers had a very specific vision for the future. They wanted Oregon to be white only. Here's where it gets uncomfortable and revealing. Many white settlers in Oregon claimed they were against slavery, but that didn't mean they believed in equality. Instead of allowing slavery, they chose something else, a place with no black people at all. Lawmakers argued that black residents would compete with white settlers for land, labor, and political power. Their solution? Erase black presence before it could even begin. The 1844 law stated that any black person who entered Oregon had to leave. And if they didn't, they could be publicly whipped every 6 months until they left the territory. This punishment applied to black men and women, free people, families, children, government-approved violence, written directly into law. And while enforcement varied, the message was loud and clear. A few years later, Oregon removed the whipping penalty, not because the law was immoral, but because it was inconvenient. The ban itself remained. Then came 1857, when Oregon applied for statehood. Voters were asked 3 questions. 1. Should slavery be legal? 2. Should free black people be allowed to live in Oregon? 3. Should black people be allowed to vote? Oregonians voted no to all 3. So when Oregon officially became a state in 1859, it entered the Union as a free state, with a black exclusion clause written directly into its constitution. No slavery, no black residents, no black voters. That clause stayed in place until 1926. That's not colonial America. That's not the 1700s. That's after the Civil War, after emancipation, after Reconstruction had already begun. And the impact of these laws didn't disappear when they were repealed. They shaped demographics, they shaped wealth, they shaped who felt safe and who never came at all. That's why Oregon remains one of the whitest states in the country today. Not by accident, by design. History often tells us demographics are natural, but this proves something important. Population patterns are engineered by laws, by policy, by who was allowed to stay and who was forced out. This isn't about guilt. It's about truth. Because you cannot understand modern America without understanding how exclusion was legalized, normalized, and enforced. Oregon's black exclusion laws remind us that racism didn't just live in attitudes, it lived in constitutions. And when we talk about fairness, access, and belonging today, we have to remember, some communities were never given a fair starting line. They were locked out entirely. History isn't always comfortable, but it matters. And the stories that make us uneasy are often the ones we need the most. Follow us to uncover more hidden black stories. Follow for more untold history.